Welcome to the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you with Saturday NBA action. I am joined by one Adam Ship My Money Share as we again are on the Awesemo Early Bird Podcast, your foundational podcast, giving you a first look of all the goodness that's out there. Adam, how are you doing?
Doing pretty well. I was doing better before half my FanDuel lineups died with the DeMar DeRozan news, but other than that, doing pretty well.
That is always a sad one. You always like the double Ds in your life on a Friday, but not this way. Not this way. We've got quite a few teams on back-to-back here. We, of course, are recording this on Friday night, so the 10 o'clock games have not yet tipped off. But we've got the teams on a back-to-back that played Friday and will be playing on Saturday. We have Orlando. They're in a home and home. We have Detroit, home on Friday, on the road Saturday. Boston in the same boat. Miami in the same boat. Again, both those teams at home, then on the road Saturday. Memphis and Cleveland on the road for both of their games. Cleveland kind of gets, I hope they brought their oxygen tanks with them. They're in Utah on Friday night, and then Saturday night they're in Denver. So, hey, that sounds like a lot of fun. Hope the conditioning works out for those guys. Teams that are playing on Saturday that are playing on Sunday, we just have two. We have Indiana is home Saturday, home Sunday, and then Phoenix is on the road for both. They're in Charlotte on Friday, or probably Saturday, and then in Minnesota on Sunday. With regards to injuries, we're not sure if Tristan Thompson will be back for that Denver game or not. He sat out on Friday, but he's listed with a targeted return date of the 19th. We have Ish Smith left the game on Friday. He had re-aggravated his groin injury and is not going to play Saturday. There's a good chance he misses time again, is what the early assessment is. Let's see. We've got John Lure is out with the cold. On Friday, he's questionable for Saturday. Dennis Smith Jr., no show to the practice facility in Dallas on Friday. I'm guessing he's not going to play. Wesley Matthews dealing with the wrist injury. He's questionable. Orlando, we have Mo Bamba was out for a little bit with the dinged-up foot. He did play on Friday. We'll have to see if he goes in the back-to-back. For Atlanta, they've got the flu bug going around. We have Jeremy Lin, Trae Young, and John Collins are all sick. They're all listed as questionable, but likely to play. We have Dwayne Dadman, who is dealing with sore ankle. He was the sore ankle. I think he is probable. We've got OG Anunoby is out for Toronto, again with a personal matter. He was out on Thursday. Josh Richardson and Wayne Ellington both out on Friday with sickness. We'll have to see if they come back for Saturday. Chicago, they have Willie. Why am I blanking on his name? I'm stuck on Willie Carter's.
Wendell Carter.
Wendell Carter. Thank you. Good God. Wendell Carter Jr. is out with thumb surgery. He's out 8 to 12 weeks. Adam, you were mentioning pre-show that he was out, upgraded to doubtful if he could make it through the shoot-around he was going to play, and now he's out for 2 to 3 months.
Yes. Yeah, really weird with him. That was before their most recent game. But, yeah, I had seen like a 4 to 6 week or month or something report, and then they were like, oh, he could play if he gets through shoot-around, and then now he needs surgery.
I don't know if it was just Tibbs that's the problem in Chicago with the health of these guys, right? Because we're just seeing some major issues with Joakim Noah, of course, Luol Deng. Now, those guys did play a million minutes, but Luol Deng is not exactly that old, but he's barely getting time, though he did make a guest appearance there the last couple games for the T-Wolves. So, surprise, surprise, I had forgotten he was part of the band getting back together there with Tibbs, who is no longer, of course, with Minnesota. And then on Houston, we do know that Brandon Knight is going to be out. His surgically repaired knee is giving him issues again. And then James Ennis is expected back. He's been dealing with the sore calf. He is probable. I think that hits most of them, Adam. We've got 8 games. We're going to go by position here. I've done all the talking and yammering along. So start us off here with point guards.
Yeah, so Russell Westbrook now back. Is that – I don't have it sorted right. Never mind. That's the early game, right?
Yes. Yes. Okay. To be fair, there's a 3 o'clock game and a 5 o'clock game. OKC at Philly for the early one. Phoenix at Charlotte for that next one. And then there's 8 games starting at 7 o'clock, just one 10 o'clock game on Saturday.
Yeah. So didn't have it sorted correctly, but he's not on the slate. So, starting you have Kyrie in a great matchup at Atlanta. Obviously, it being a back-to-back for Boston and being in Atlanta lowers blowout risk a bit. We've also seen Atlanta be able to actually hang in games lately. So a really nice paced-up spot for Kyrie, a really bad Atlanta defense. I think the price tag is a little more expensive than I would like, especially when you look at some of the guys around him. But, no issue if you can get there. I think that Jamal Murray, obviously, in a really nice spot against Cleveland. Slow-paced Cleveland team, but just really, really bad defense. You do run into, obviously, blowout issues there with, Cleveland going into Denver and just facing a Denver team that is much, much better than they are. But, certainly some upside there.
Kind of looking at the mid-tier here. Chris Dunn, incredibly disappointing. Now, remember, Chicago is coming back playing at home. They were on that massive West Coast road swing. I think it was 6 or 7 games long. He had one good one, and then his last 4 kind of, I don't know, I think the proper term is sucked ass. But he is back home. Hopefully he's got his legs under him. 5,900, intriguing matchup. They'll be going against Miami, who is on the back-to-back. Justice Winslow, 7,100. That price is getting up there. But depending if Josh Richardson's out again, or if Wayne Ellington, etc., if that flu bug continues to go around to anybody else, he could look relatively solid. And then, of course, your favorite, Lonzo Ball, sitting there kind of splitting the difference between those guys. What do you like amongst that trio?
I think the price tag on Dunn is cheap, but you just really can't trust him in anything outside of tournaments. He has said that he's kind of lost in this Jim Boylan offense. The offense itself is unappealing as they are playing like it's 1982 and just playing really, really slow basketball. So all that stuff works against him. Working in his favor is that, the price tag's cheap and he's a good enough player that he still has a ceiling there. You get to Lonzo in a nice matchup against Houston, pace down spot for the Lakers, but obviously not a great Houston defense. And normally you're going to get 36 to 38 minutes from Lonzo, which is nice. Justice Winslow, probably my favorite out of that group, though, especially if Richardson's out. I think you'll see a couple more minutes. You'll see even more ball handling responsibilities for Winslow. And, it's not as good a matchup as it used to be against Chicago, but still not a bad matchup here. So all 3 of those guys, I think, appealing in their own way. I would lean toward Lonzo or Winslow more than Dunn, even though they're a little more expensive.
All right, and one important thing I do want to point out at Winslow, this is over on Draft. This remember, playdraft.com. It's where you play. Every player is on one team because you're drafting them: 2 forwards, 2 guards, and a center. Justice Winslow is forward eligible. I throw that out there because oftentimes he falls down the list 6 or 7 spots, and you can get him in the 3rd round, and it's like having 3 point guards, which is very, very preferable in my opinion. So that's one of the guys I have been using recently, especially now that his role is cemented and we've seen less ball handlers active for Miami. Coming on down through the price list, a couple cheapies here. Marcus Smart, 4,400, assuming he is going to be a go on the back-to-back. DJ Augustine, also on a back-to-back, 4,800. That's an appealing price point. Jeremy Lin, 4,400, coming off that illness. Seems like we have some solid sub 5K guys here, Adam. Anybody pop out for you?
Not as like a favorite play or anything like that. I think that $4,400 Marcus Smart against Atlanta is actually appealing. It's just the kind of game that he should do well in, playing against, in a fast-paced game where there's extra rebounding opportunities and against a sloppy Atlanta team where he can pick up defensive stats. You never feel great about rostering Smart. He's in the midst of a good game here against Memphis on Friday night, which probably, makes it even less likely he actually has another good game. But, joking aside, I think that it's the kind of spot that you want to look to Marcus Smart in.
Oh, gambler's fallacy there, Adam. Gambler's fallacy. Well, let's jump over here to the 2 guard because they call it a 2 guard because James Harden is like the equivalent of 2 players, now both in salary and production. He is going against the Lakers at home. He is 61 on Yahoo. He is 13-4 on DraftKings. And I believe you said he had crossed over 14,000 there on FanDuel. It's early. We've got 16 teams in action. The flu bug's going around. We're going to have the value we need to do to work him in. But is it too much of a stretch at those prices?
I don't think so. I mean, like you said, there's eight teams going on a Saturday. So there's almost definitely going to be value that opens up throughout the day. And you get Harden here against the Lakers team that has been very good from a defensive efficiency standpoint as far as what they allow on a per possession basis. But when you factor in that they're playing at the fastest pace in the league, it still is a favorable matchup for DFS purposes because you're getting more possessions. And Harden obviously uses almost every Houston possession that they get. So it's still just the price tag's expensive, but you're talking about someone that's going to project for 75 to 80 fantasy points, and he's just the top play. There's not really any way around it, I don't think.
So here's the numbers. Just looking at his last half dozen games, he's averaging 38 and a half minutes. That's not an ungodly number by any stretch. He is shooting 44.4% from the field, 33% from three. He is taking, he has 98 three-pointers across those 6 games. That is just absurd. I mean, it's just amazing. He's gone to the line 94 times, hitting 91.5% of those. So he's missed 5 free throws in the last 5 or 6 games, and he's shot it 94 times from the charity stripe. Also averaging 9 boards, almost 9 assists, a block, and 2 steals. So 3 stocks, shout out to Laffy, combined there, on his way to 77 DraftKings points. Adam, that is, I feel like that could be the baseline projection, like the plus or minus 2 or 3 points, 60% outcome kind of baseline projection there at 77.
Yeah, and I mean, just to even go back further than what he's done in this now going on almost a month without Chris Paul, if you go back to last season and you take Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Clint Capella, and Trevor Ariza off the floor, you actually, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but I looked at it before the last game. So before his last game, you got actually like a 595-minute sample of him averaging 1.95 DraftKings points per minute going back to last season. It's not like we're just talking about, 150 minutes of him shooting well or something like that. He's just the entire offense. He's good enough to be the entire offense. And he can obviously still have a bad game, but it's not like you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop and you're expecting it to happen. Like, the projection is just going to be a top play even at his new salary.
So in their last 20 games, they're 19 games, they're 15-4. Boy, math's not my strong suit. That's great. However, the 4 of those losses have come in their last 7 games. So that slightly, he is human, it appears, Adam. An overtime loss at home to Brooklyn, of all teams. Shout out to Brooklyn. Did you know right now there are 6 teams that have winning records at home or on the road? 6 teams that have winning records on the road. The home court advantage is just massive in the NBA.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I like to check on that every now and then. Sometimes it'll get as high as 10 or 11, but usually by the end of the season, all the teams are tanking. They just don't care anymore. But that's for this point in the season. That's pretty darn good, pretty darn low for being that number, just 6 out of the 30 teams. All right, on to the mere mortals. We do have Victor Oladipo going against Dallas. You have Zach Attack going against Miami there. Jamal Murray, we kind of mentioned him at point guard, so we can skip him. Ooh, Brandon Ingram broke my heart in that game against OKC. Did not do much at all. But at 6,600, I'm going to be tempted to go right back to him. Talk to me about Oladipo, Zach, and Ingram.
So Oladipo is basically in DeMar DeRozan territory where his price tag keeps falling, and I'm just going to go broke right with playing him every day because I still think it's the right play. Just because he's had bad games doesn't really impact anything. He's teams are approaching him differently. He's talked about, and people affiliated with Indiana have talked about him basically having to adjust because teams have adjusted to him. But you have the price tag dropping to a point where you're still talking about someone that should play around 34 minutes. He got up 19 or 20 shots last game. It's not like he's standing in a corner now or something. The usage has gone down since he came back from injury, but we're still talking about 26 or 27%. It's just down from his 31.5% in the first part of the season. So he just still projects as too cheap at this price tag. And then you have people shying away from him because of recent performance. That's, to me, just not a profitable way to approach DFS. So I'm going to keep going back to Oladipo. He's going to play he's going to turn it around sooner rather than later. It's just the player he is, and the opportunity is certainly there. So, really, really like him a lot at this price tag. You get Luka Doncic playing without Dennis Smith Jr., which leads to an increased assist percentage, but also he has over 30% usage rate over the last month. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Tough matchup for him against Indiana, but he's kind of just matchup proof at this point. So I think he's interesting as well.
All right, cruising down the price sheet a little more. We've got double Bogdanovich is there. We've got Bojan going for Indy against Dallas there. He is 5,600. We have Bogey going for Sacramento in Detroit. Detroit is on that home and home back-to-back. What do you like here with either of the Bogdanoviches? Bogdanovich? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, not the most appealing spot. Bogdan, I think, still a little underpriced on DraftKings, but not a great matchup here against Detroit. Don't mind either of them, but probably not priorities for me.
All right, and then we potentially have both Gary Harris and Will Barton back. Remains to be seen if anybody cracks the starting lineup there, but that's going to kind of chop up their minutes. It's going to muck with Morris. It's going to muck with Beasley, etc. So as Denver gets back to full strength, that becomes a little bit of a problem. I don't really want to go there. I think that's going to about do it unless anybody else is popping for you here at the shooting guard. Maybe a Reggie Jackson. He's a small or power forward. Ugh, good God. Center. There we go. I named all three positions he's not eligible for. Yes, he's eligible for both guard spots on DraftKings. Point guard and shooting guard. Again, Ishmael out, so he is at 5,200. Hasn't been overly exciting, but Sacramento does like to play fast, free, and loose.
Yeah, and I think that Smith, it makes the minutes a little bit more,
secure,
I guess, solidified. yeah. I mean, that's even using that word loosely, because we've seen games where Calderon picks up like 22 minutes, but you should get a greater chance for Jackson to actually hit 30 minutes in a favorable spot here.
All right, less tenuous. How's that?
Yeah. There you go.
All right, let's hit small forward here. Giannis Antetokounmpo is checking in at 10,700. Adam, very expensive, but now getting a nice discount going against James Harden. He has a matchup with Orlando. Again, Orlando is on their home and home, but it's back to back. Thoughts on Giannis?
The price difference is nice. If you get a big ownership difference between him and Harden, then it starts to become, kind of interesting. But they're just still in different ballparks. I mean, Giannis is a guy that's going to play 35, 36 minutes in a competitive game and average around 1.6 fantasy points per minute. Harden is a guy who's going to play 38 to 40 minutes and average between 1.8 and 2 fantasy points per minute. It's just a completely, Giannis is a star, no question about it. And when the Rockets are healthy, he's very comparable to Harden. But with this current version of the Rockets team, it's just not really a comparison between the two.
All right. Kyle Kuzma seems to be better from that bulky back, at least at the moment. I shied away from him in the last game, but he was, once again, outstanding. 55 DraftKings points, played 36 minutes. Over his last half dozen, he has played at least 29 in all of them. He's averaging 34. He is coming on with 23 and a half points, 7 boards, 2 assists and change. Doesn't really do much with blocks or steals, but he is looking like he's going to be playing the minutes. We know there's going to be a lot of three-pointers taken here in the Rockets-Lakers game. Thoughts on Kyle Kuzma at 7,500 now?
I really like him here. You mentioned the minutes should be there. You should get 36, maybe more out of him. He's like a 27 or 28% usage guy since the LeBron injury. It's a favorable matchup against Houston, and it's just pretty easy to see situations where him and Harden just end up, getting into it down the stretch and going shot for shot. So I really like Kuzma quite a bit.
All right. Now this pair I always get wrong, so normally I don't play them. That has actually cost me recently with Thaddeus Young and Harrison Barnes. So Thaddy Daddy, I believe he is going to be a free agent after this season. He has been outstanding for Indiana. He is whatever they need. That's what he's doing that night. So former Sonic, former Indiana Pacer, Derek McKee, that's kind of who he reminds me of. Just kind of fills in wherever you need him. You need some scoring tonight? I got that. You need me to hit the boards? No problem. You need a tertiary ball handler? Sure, I'll give it a whirl. But he has been pretty good. The shot attempts are what has been really nice. He has been in double digits for 5 of his last 6. And that's something that we don't always see. And he's been hitting the 3 with some regularity when he's taking them. So that's also nice to see. What are you going to do with him and Harrison Barnes going against each other?
Yeah, Young's been really good for a while now, but the price tag is kind of caught up to where if I end up with him in some tournament lineups, that's fine. But this just isn't the kind of game where I'm really looking to get there. It's not the kind of, fast-paced game where I think that Young's kind of multi-talented abilities can do the most damage. And then for Barnes on the other side, it's, really, it's a tough matchup. He's that kind of, like at 5,400, it's not bad. He probably is going to score 27 fantasy points, but it's not really exciting either.
All right. Thaddeus Young is making just shy of $14 million this year.
That's wow. Must be rough.
Yeah. Good times. Good times had by all. That feels like a player that Ernie Grunfeld's going to want to make sure gets paid one last time on his contract. Moving down to the bargains here. Nobody really that exciting. Fournier and Barnes, they both check in at 5,400. A disappointing Gordon Hayward in there at 5,500. Jermichael Green has been having some moments. He's going against Toronto. He's 5,200. Any one of these guys stand above anyone else?
No, not really.
DeAndre Bembry going against Boston. This is the close your eyes and pick one if we get to that point. Again, something will happen with regards to news because we do have 16 teams in action across these 8 games. Power forward here, this, of course, is where there's a gazillion crossovers on DraftKings between the small forward and center position. But calling out a couple we haven't mentioned thus far, Adam, you do have Blake Griffin at 9,000. Very fun matchup going against Sacramento. You've got Sabonis going against Dallas. Now, Miles Turner is back, but Sabonis has dropped to 6,700. That's a palatable price point. And then Pascal Siakam, I think most of the Toronto team is going to play here against Memphis, but this one is one where I'm intrigued by Siakam at 6,500. What do you like here? The world is your oyster at power forward.
I like Blake. He sat out this matchup last time, but it's a good matchup for him. The rebounding hasn't really been there for him lately. We're seeing him handle the ball more and, play away from the basket a bit. But it's just such a bad Sacramento team in terms of rebounding, and it's a fast-paced Sacramento team. I think that, it wouldn't be surprising to see Blake flirt with a triple-double in this particular matchup. The $9,000 price tag's appealing. I don't have the Detroit game on right now, but I know Andre Drummond was injured in the first half. Not sure if he ever even came back. So that's something else to keep an eye on as far as, Blake's rebounding goes. But even if, Drummond is able to play, it's just a really, really nice spot for Blake at the top, especially when you factor in that, John Collins is in a tough matchup with Boston. Aaron Gordon is not in the best matchup having to deal with Giannis against Milwaukee. It's just not the most appealing, mid-range. You have Kyle Kuzma, who I really like, but other than that, it's at Al Horford where he's power forward eligible. But other than those two, it's not a whole lot that I like here outside of Blake.
All right, here's the update courtesy of Roto World for Andre Drummond. Nasal injury. It says it took a half hour after the injury occurred for the Pistons to rule him out for the rest of the game. Took a shot to the face from James Johnson. Perhaps he broke his nose, or it could be related to the nose surgery that he had a couple years ago. With him out, Zaza will play more, blah, 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 Blake at the 5. If you remember, didn't he have that something to do with I don't remember, it was deviated septum or whatever it was, but he was having some breathing troubles, and he had that surgery to correct it a couple years ago, and that's when he just took that leap to the next level and had all those 2020 games, et cetera. So hopefully it didn't injure that reconstructive surgery or anything like that. But that feels to me like this could be one where he's not going to play on.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. He did have that surgery a couple of years ago. It was one of those things where you always get all kinds of random news in the offseason. And we got that one. We're like, yeah, sure, whatever. Andre Drummond's Andre Drummond. But he went out there and was a completely different player.
Yeah, and apparently less labored at the line, was able to bump his free throw percentage by about 15%, all that other stuff. Now he's been working on that too, but it was just this dramatic turnaround. It's like when you hear the baseball players get the LASIK surgery when they've just been dealing with contacts or whatever it is they've been using. So just want to put that out there. That'll move us on over here to the pivot position as we wrap things up. Reminder, if you have not yet tried out Osmo, you can do so by getting 50% off any 1-month package by using the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word. Select a monthly package of your choice. It can be a single sport. It can be the full suite of everything. You can even include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, and you will get 50% off your first month. Adam, moving on here to centers. Let me get to the right page here. Too many windows open. We have, your favorite, Nikola Jokic. Now, I know you don't like to talk blowouts, but you kind of did mention this one already. I mentioned it before, Cleveland on the 2 highest altitude teams on a back-to-back nights. That can't be very fun. They're going against the fresh Denver team. Feels like this is a spot where Jokic may have a phenomenal first half, get 38 fantasy points, may end up with 45 for the game because they don't need him down the stretch. I'm a little nervous about going 10,100 on DraftKings for Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a game where he scores 55 points in 3 quarters, which, you're fine with, and there obviously is the upside if Cleveland can keep it close. Is Thompson ruled out yet?
They don't know. He's listed as a return date targeted for Saturday, but we don't know.
Yeah, because if he's out,
left foot soreness for him. So they were to fill in a little bit of the gaps there. They were talking about potentially him not playing in the next couple back-to-backs. This would be one of them. Maybe they're holding him out of the Utah one because they want him to play in Denver, but conceivably he could miss both Utah and Denver.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it basically is just it's a phenomenal spot for Jokic. I can guarantee you, or not, I don't want to guarantee you. I can almost guarantee I'm going to have, Jokic in tournament lineups. There's risk. The risk doesn't come from the defensive matchup. It comes from the fact that Denver could win this game by 48 points. But, again, the upside, if this game does somehow stay close and Cleveland keeps it within 15 points even, you have monster upside with Jokic. So still a perfectly fine play. It's just the risk is a little bit different than it is for, players that are in good matchup or, tough matchups.
All right. If you'd like to have some savings, 4,600. He didn't pop there for me when we were looking at power forwards. Apparently, I didn't scroll down far enough. But Maximilian Kleber, we know that DSJ not going to be around. We know that Dirk not going to play a ton of minutes, and we've got Wesley Matthews with the sore wrist, questionable. 4,600 for Kleber feels like a fun spot to save some money.
Yeah, it's kind of – I think he's correctly priced, but, on the bottom edge of that, if that makes sense. I think there's still a little bit of value there, and the most likely outcome is that he, exactly 6X his salary or something like that. So I think he's perfectly fine, especially, right now we don't have a ton of value that's opened up. Once you get, Andre Drummond ruled out, you can probably save even more money and go to, John Lure or something like that. But for right now, Maxi Kleber was fine. He's a productive enough player. He's around a point per minute guy. It's not a good matchup, but he's good enough.
At 12 on Yahoo, I think that's where we can play him. Power forward eligible, so we don't have to burn the center spot. $12, nice little savings there. Could be some differentiation. A lot of people like to go straight to those $10 players over on Yahoo. Hey, if you have not yet signed up for Yahoo, use the promo code OSMO. When you make your first deposit, you will get a deposit bonus match up to your first $30 of your initial deposit. That will be in Yahoo player points, which are available for immediate use. Check out on the front page, get a free article breaking down the whole championship conference championship Sunday slate for Yahoo by yours truly. Talked about every viable player, and we've got some fun because looks like Kirkwood and why am I blanking on their tight end's name, are ruled out for New Orleans. So could be some fun value there. Nothing sneaky on a 2-game NFL slate when it's for all the marbles, but there are some options that are going to be out there for you. Finishing up here on the center position before we duck on out of here, Adam. Anybody here in the mid-tier that you like? I was going to say the mid-Turner. The Miles Turner, Willie Cauley-Stein, Marc Gasol triumvirate, reasonably priced, but they haven't been really performing recently.
Yes, I mean, I like Vucevic with the price drop down to 8,600. I know it's not the best matchup against Milwaukee. I know he's on a back-to-back, but that's a pretty nice price tag for a guy that has the kind of offensive game that Vooch has. Going a little bit lower than that, Gasol, tough matchup against Toronto. playing through injury most likely. I guess obviously keep an eye on his status with this being a back-to-back as well. But the price tag at 6,700 on DraftKings is fine. I think Whiteside at 6,500 is a perfectly fine tournament play. You never know what you're going to get from him minutes-wise, but he should be able to just dominate the Chicago front court for whenever he's out there. Al Horford against his former team in Atlanta, I think is really interesting. Again, keep an eye out for word on his minutes. We've seen his minutes come up, but we don't really know if he's on any sort of restriction still on back-to-backs.
All right, I was just looking because Vucevic has played the Bucks one time already. That game was way back on October 27th. That was in Milwaukee. The Magic lost by 22. He only played 21 and a half minutes, but he did put up 31 DraftKings points. He had 16 and 9. Did have 4 fouls, so I'm going to assume that along with the blowout is what potentially limited him, considering that was just the 6th game of the season as well. Anything else here you want to hit on before we dip on out of here?
Yeah, I think Bobby Portis is still fine. His price tag came up pretty quickly, but he's still over a point per minute guy. And then obviously keep an eye on the Andre Drummond situation, because going against the Kings, either Zaza and John Lawler would both end up being perfectly fine plays.
All right, already in the can. If you guys want to check it out, we do have the on the contrary with Alex Baker. Him as Osimo, Chris Baggs, and the one and only Evan Silva. You can find that over on our Osimo YouTube channel. That is free. We also have the Osimo Odds show up with Ben Raza breaking down the weekend's games with some player props. And then, of course, around 11:15, you can see Adam and I go game by game through this 8-game monster of a slate, because we're kind of used to the 6-gamers at this point. But we'll probably spend, 90 minutes, an hour and 45 going over these 8 games in excruciating detail. You can check that out, and we will definitely get that posted on the podcast feed as well. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at ShipMyMoneyDFS for Adam. I am at EMACDFS, and it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.